Hello? Hello? Oh, oh. Would you please turn your cell phones off? I called myself. Good morning. Good morning. Let me try that one more time. Good morning. Welcome to the Youth Symposium of COMTO. Will be an experience for you young people that you will not forget. My name is Raynard Hughes. I am the co-chair of the COMTO Scholars Program, and today we have a lot of things planned for you young people to enlighten you, to show you, and hopefully you'll go away from here with greater dreams than you had when you first came. At this particular time, I'd like to bring before you Ms. Julie Cunningham, our CEO.
Okay, would you all just take a moment and just look at your cell phones, turn the volume down? Because we don't want that to occur during the debate, please. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the COMTO 42nd National Meeting and Training Conference and to the great transportation debate. Yes, come on, give it up. Let me tell you, I want to get our judges in here. So could somebody see if Keith Parker's out there? Because Luke's going to be giving some instructions. Okay, so I've had the pleasure of judging 2 debates by the National Urban Debate League, National Association of the Urban, okay, tell me you guys. National Association for Urban Debate League, thank you. And the first time was at the Transportation Research Board Conference in January. And this is an amazing thing. These are high school students. And so, you know, all I can say is I can show you better than I can tell you. So you'll see for yourself. And then I've judged, along with a very distinguished panel at the Smithsonian, the debaters that you'll see today, that you'll hear today. On that panel were Michael Ward from CSX, Bob Skinner, President CEO of the Transportation Research Board, Michael Malanafi from the American Public Transportation Association, David Strickland from NHTSA at the DOT, the General Counsel from the US DOT, Bob Rifkin. So there were like 20 such people judging the debate teams that you will see here today. And so I'm just, you know, you see him once, and I said to Luke and to Barbara Carney, who works at for the organization, I said, we got to get them to COMTO. And then you see them twice, and I said, okay, we have to get these 2 teams to COMTO. So I'm really excited about this. This is an experience that we've never had before. My understanding is when we go to Atlanta next year, I think we're going to Atlanta, the board will decide, but Keith Parker is going to be the host agency from MARTA. They have teams in Atlanta. So these 2 teams, we've brought them in from Boston. COMTO Boston, where are you? Okay. And from Detroit. COMTO Detroit, where are you? And so we got some definite teams in the room, and they're very excited to be here. So without further ado, let me turn it back. Well, let me just do a couple quick acknowledgments. Raynard Hughes and Tracy Bissalou are the co-chairpersons of our National Scholars Committee. And so they run this effort. They are the ones that make sure that every T is crossed, every I dotted for the Youth Symposium. They selected from 103 scholarship applications, the students that will be awarded scholarships on Tuesday. So they are the 2 individuals who lead our Youth Initiative. But they have a lot of people that work with them. So anybody in the National Scholars Committee, would you stand up so we can recognize you as well? Yeah. This, I said, you know, we have some amazing committees, but this committee does, they do a ton of work. They do a ton of work. God forbid I should have to hire staff to do the work that they do. Right, Mr. Chairman? Absolutely. And so it is very appropriate that we hear from our national chair. I know you don't have a speech, but they need to know that this is a boss, so please come on up and say hello to everybody. Thank you all. Enjoy.
You know, as a matter of time, I'm not going to take that microphone. I just want to, I really appreciate the fact that all of you young people are here. I hope you pay a lot of attention this morning because this is going to be a first for us and a great educational experience for all of you. So with that, let's get this debate on. Thank you.
The next person I'd like to bring before the podium is a young man you. Oh, bring them on in. As they come in, some of the adults that are in some of the prime seats, if you could step to another table so that they can find a chair, please, if possible.
So these students all come from North Carolina A&T Summer Transportation Institute. And they're coming down here?
Okay.
Okay.
Right in there. Let's put them right in there. It's about 20 students coming in. With all the students that are participating today that are here, would you please stand so I can see where you're at? All the students, could you stand, please? All students. All students. Anyone that is in the first year of college or down, would you please stand? I want to see. Fantastic. You can have a seat. Give yourselves an applause. Let's step lively, young people. Let's step lively. Come on, let's come on in. Come on. Okay. Wow. This looks great. If you could see what I see, young people, inquisitive, ready to move to the next level. Young people, give yourselves a hand, please. Adults, applaud with them. Thank you. Awesome. This young man I'm getting ready to bring before you, Ms. Julie, she gave you some information about him. But when I met with him on yesterday, he's a very unique young man, has a passion for the art of debating. Luke Hill is a manager of the debate program with the National Association for Urban Debate League. Prior to him joining, he served as debate coach for Northeast University, where his team won the National Debate Tournament. Luke is a champion within himself. Luke believes in young people. Luke believes in the initiatives about what the debate team is about. Let's give Mr. Luke Hill an applause. Luke. And look how young he looks.
Thanks so much, sir. Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us for another one of our public debates. At the National Association for Urban Debate Leagues, we are committed to trying to bring the passion and skill of debate to as many youth in urban areas as we can. We currently have chapters in 19 different cities. This year we had 7,000 different students from high school and middle schools across the country debate in over 300 schools in school systems that are traditionally underserved by extracurricular programs like debate, especially challenging academic programs like academic debate. And so we are really happy and excited to be able to share four of our finest sets of debaters with you. We will have a demonstration debate that's a modified version of the traditional policy debates that our students in our 19 leagues participate in. It's going to be 35 minutes, and I will need assistance from each of the students in the audience because you're a judge as well. In front of you on your desk or on the table, you'll find a small quarter sheet ballot. If you don't have a ballot in front of you, please raise your hand and we can get one around to you. That ballot will ask you to take some notes during the debate, and you'll need to make a decision who won the debate, and there'll be a student judge to go along with with our fine panel of judges here as well. And I'd like to thank COMTO for having us and for putting together such a wonderful panel of judges for this event. We have Ms. Tracy Besselou, Vice President and Director of Talent for Parsons Brickenhoff. We have Jovan does not appear to be here yet, so hopefully we'll cross our fingers. And Mr. Goldstein from Goldstein LLC can make it. Bob Prince, who you've met, the National Chair of COMTO. Mr. Michael Sloan, Vice President of Compliance and Risk at the Jacksonville Transit Authority. Ms. Angela Spears, Special Assistant to Mayor Alvin Brown here in Jacksonville. Mariah Stanley, Educational Services Coordinator at APTA. Linda Washington, former Assistant Secretary for Administration at the USDOT, President and CEO of the Washington Consulting Team, and Mr. Keith Parker, General Manager and CEO of MARTA. And we are really excited that they could all be here to join us for this debate. Let me run through the schedule or the kind of agenda real quick, and then I'll tell you a little bit about our debaters and invite them up. Each team will take turns alternating giving speeches, giving longer constructive speeches, and then giving shorter rebuttal speeches overall. The debate will take about 35 minutes in total. And after constructive speeches, where students introduce new arguments, the other team will have a chance to cross-examine them and ask them, what in the world did you just say? And that doesn't make any sense, and things will have that nature. So it should be a very great way that you can see how a debate works and how it's a very useful way in order to interrogate and look at policy issues and look at and use as a form of decision-making going on. So after the debate, just make a decision of who convinced you. Please push out of your mind any preconceived notions you have about the topic and focus instead on what they say. Our debaters will be debating the same topic that all policy debaters across the country debated this past year: resolved the United States federal government should substantially increase its investment in transportation infrastructure. In policy debate, that's a very broad topic. There's a whole lot of transportation infrastructure, everything from ports to rails to highways. So each debate round is an hour and a half long, so our students focus on a very specific example of that resolution. The affirmative today will be focusing on an advocacy and a policy idea that we should increase mass transit programs in inner cities in America. And they are going to give you the case for that coming up. So with that, I'd like to introduce our two sets of debaters. The first is the affirmative team from New Hope School in Boston. Elvis and Fatah, can you come up? And our second team is from Detroit, Michigan, from the Cass Technical High School. Taskia and Tyree, can y'all come up? Let me just tell you a little bit about these wonderful students. I've gotten to work with them to prepare for two different debates. They're wonderful examples of the type of students that we hope that debate helps help a little bit, but they're all wonderful people that I'm pretty sure were just this amazing to start with. Tyree and Taskia were champion debaters from our Detroit League. Taskia just graduated from high school and has already been accepted into medical school, and so she'll soon be Dr. Albari. She's about to start in the fall her bioengineering MD program at the University of Toledo. And Tyree is such an avid debater that he is taking a break from a 6-week intensive study of debate at Emory University this summer in order to kind of show you some of his skills today. Not to be left out, our young upstarts here from Boston. Although they were just sophomores this past year, Elvis and Fatah were ranked the second best team in Boston's championship division. Fatah is taking some time off from a program at a little school called Harvard in order to work with us today. And Elvis is coming to us after winning multiple speaker awards as the top speaker at Boston debate tournaments over the course of the season. I think that you will all be as amazed with their abilities as I am every time I get to deal with these fine young people. And with that, I will stop blabbering on and let the real show begin with the first affirmative constructive speech.
Hello, my name is Elvis Alvarado. I'll be representing the affirmative side of this debate. America has made wise transportation investments that benefit groups of people, but has left out one group of people. Who have we left out? The answer, the urban poor. The urban poor is overlooked, living under the radar. They are physically visible but intellectually unheard. But just like 19th century homesteaders and 20th century suburban dwellers, these Americans work hard and still believe in the American dream. The inability to travel has our people trapped, unable to access jobs and economic prosperity. The absence of adequate transportation infrastructure has pushed the urban poor into isolated communities, overlooked and unheard. My opponents will try to convince you that now is not the time to invest in urban mass transit, but we hope a century and a half of evidence will convince you that thoughtful investment in transportation infrastructure is a plan worth implementing. However, they cannot deny the fact that it is historically proven railways and highways gave mobility to industries, it produced jobs, it attracted new businesses, and mass transit can do the same. Transportation infrastructure has been spent on highways that only benefit society's higher income earners. Brenda Milikowski, researcher for Building America's Future Educational Fund, conducted a transportation infrastructure report in 2011. The report concluded as of right now, only 15% of federal gas tax revenue is dedicated for mass transit. President Kennedy once stated, "To conserve and enhance values in existing urban areas is essential, but at least our steps to promote economic efficiency and livability in areas of future development. Our national welfare, therefore, requires the provision of good urban transportation with the properly balanced use of private vehicles and modern mass balance between public transit and private motor vehicles." America has lost sight of the balance between public transit and private motor vehicles, as well as we have stopped promoting public transit. Thus, my partner and I propose the following plan. The United States federal government should substantially increase its investment in urban mass transit systems. Mass transit can alleviate the struggles brought upon by poverty, but not acting to reduce and distribute aid to those who need it guarantees cycles of poverty. Scholar Timo Omach from the University of Applied Science and Arts in Switzerland states from an article published in 2009, failure to address transportation inequality guarantees cycles of poverty. The lack of mobility facilities prevents people from participating in society, limits access to education and the labor markets. Poverty and deprivation structures are thus mutually reinforced. There are people living at disadvantages due to poor mobility. Not only can we help those now, we can help many generations that are the future of America. When we break the chain of poverty, a pathway to success is created. Violence is a direct effect of poverty. The desperation to attain necessities to live consequently results in violence. James Gilligan, professor of psychiatry at the Harvard Medical School, director of the Center of Study of Violence, reported in 1996, "Poverty is a hidden evil that systematically targets the weak and the poor, constantly causing harm. It has become accustomed to see large groups of minorities impoverished. The death rates of those who are impoverished are high when compared to those who occupy the gentility of society. American society has become one in which the opportunity to achieve success is limited to those who need it most. Mass transit helps the lives of the impoverished daily. Most importantly, they help the future of America. American children need quality education, but due to a lack of mass transit, the young citizens of this nation are at a disadvantage. One study found that students traveling to or from schools in cities of more than 500,000 accounted for 15% of all public transportation trips. There are still some of our youth not accounted for in this 15%. Associate Professor of Urban Affairs at Virginia Tech, Thomas W. Sanchez, stated in a report done in 2003, a number of high school students in Oakland and El Cerrito, which have significant minority populations, testified that they needed free transit passes because their families sometimes had to decide between food and bus fare. Drastic decisions that need to be made due to poor circumstances, such as food or bus fare, are not decisions we should allow. With better and easier accessible transportation, students can pursue goals. Mass transit can serve many purposes. Mass transit works on local levels, aiding the lives of the impoverished, but it also serves as a stable economic stimulus benefiting all of America. Mass transit has been overlooked and not given enough credit as it is forced under the shadow of the personal automobile. According to the United States Department of Transportation in 2002, mass transit saved $19.4 billion in congestion cost savings, $8 billion in roadway cost savings, $12.1 billion in parking cost savings, $22.6 billion in consumer cost savings, and $5.6 billion in reduced crash damages. The calculated total savings was $67.7 billion. In 1 year, mass transit proved itself to be effective. It is time for the nation to invest in its people. It has worked before and will work again. More recently, economist Chantal Fleischer stated in 2011, public transit helps strengthen local economies and reduces poverty by helping those without transportation obtain jobs that were previously out of reach. According to a study done by the New America Foundation on February 2010, each $1 billion of spending on infrastructure can generate up to 17,000 jobs directly and up to 23,000 jobs by means of induced indirect investment. With that being said, the urban poor can access jobs that are outside of their neighborhoods. Mass transit creates instant jobs such as construction, and this is a long project. It also creates permanent jobs such as management and security. Mass transit has the ability to cultivate the economy of an urban neighborhood. According to the American Public Transportation Association, new businesses and developers are drawn to transit stations where a solid customer base and consumer demands create a robust business environment. Through aiding individual lives, our whole country benefits. Fortunately, accessibility and opportunity can be given to our unheard citizens. Investment in transportation infrastructure is critical in doing so. According to Eric Mann, a member of the Labor Community Strategy Center, reported in 2006, increasing investment in mass transit is crucial to decrease social inequality and allow the poor to gain access to jobs, education, and social services. We now give those who have no modes of transportation a new generation of mobility. The ability to travel will be created, whether it's to work, hospitals, or schools. The ability to express their ambition is demonstrated by the great lengths they will travel. The main goal is to provide accessibility, for this is the land of opportunity. Thank you.
For cross-examination?
Yes.
Okay. So, can you just clarify, how does transit alleviate poverty exactly?
Okay, so people that are in poverty generally don't have jobs. They're unemployed. And the reason is they don't have access to proper transportation to get themselves to the job. So by adding urban
Okay,
mass transit,
but
we're going
so
to give people
transit, like,
transportation.
What's wrong with the transit that we have now?
Well, not all urban areas have it, and there's some areas that is not adequate enough. It's like, and so they're not able to get to a direct
Thank you.
location.
So do you know what adding transit in urban areas does to the economy in those areas?
It boosts the urban economies.
Okay, thank you. So, and how exactly does it save money?
It saves money in road cost savings, congestion cost savings, parking cost savings,
So it sounds like what we have now is pretty good, right?
well, if we have more
So I'm
than,
saying you give a lot of evidence about how transit saves us money, so why would we need to take this risk?
it's not a risk if we have the facts proving how beneficial it would be. And since I already have savings, wouldn't it be fair to think that if we add more, there'll be more savings?
Okay, so why you started talking about the early 1900s? Why did we switch from those railroad systems to private vehicles?
Well, at that moment, what we were doing was we was implementing transportation to help America grow.
So you're trying to take us back to the past?
No, I'm giving you examples of the federal government implementing transportation that has benefited groups of people, and I'm pointing out the fact that the only people we have not benefited is the urban poor, the people that deserve it.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Tuskia Albari, and I will be representing the negative side of the debate. First, I would like to thank COMTO and the judges for coming in and allowing us to participate and for participating in judging this debate. Robert Frost, in his poem, The Road Not Taken, states that one should follow the path one firmly believes in, regardless whether that path is popular or not. The affirmative has proposed that our government increase investment in mass transit. I will be demonstrating to you another road and show you that the affirmative's plan actually causes more harm than good. The affirmative explains that increasing investment in transportation infrastructure will help the economy by increasing construction jobs and business expenditures. And at times, yes, spending is the best way to help the economy. However, the affirmative fails to inform you that due to our current fiscal circumstances, the perception in need to spend will not only ruin our economy, but our national policies as well, such as reforms in healthcare, foreign aid, and social services. These national policies are important in the sense that they aid the hardworking citizens of our country in paying their medical bills, aiding their special needs, and etc. According to the National Transportation Policy Project, as of June 2011, our national political discourse today is characterized by strong disagreements about the appropriate level of governmental spending and is overwhelmingly resistant to any new taxes. Due to our most recent debt crisis, spending unnecessary money is impractical and potentially harmful. Our fiscal discipline is what helps the United States have a strong and effective government. Therefore, large spending programs for transportation infrastructure could undermine fiscal discipline because the amount of money spent will force the government to rely on deficit spending. The government and the people themselves will not receive the full benefit of such an expensive plan. This leads to a reduction in fiscal discipline because the government will not be spending money wisely enough, which impacts and undermines our currency value due to this deficit spending and inflation. During the 1900s, the collapse of the US dollar created not only a national depression, but also an international depression. Our economy was in a really bad state during that time. People had to sell their precious belongings just to make ends meet, and many died due to starvation and lack of nutrients because they couldn't afford to live. Implementing the plan will not only cause a major flaw in our national policies, but it will also cripple our economy, a result that we may not be able to overcome. Not only does the affirmative undermine U.S. fiscal discipline, their plan does not effectively do the things that they say that it will do. For example, the affirmative believes that an increase in investment in mass transit will help those who are in poverty have mobility. They believe that this will narrow the gap between the rich and the poor. But in reality, this actually masks the real problem, which is relative inequity. Because the affirmative only increases spending towards one form of transportation and does not decrease the funding towards highways and railroads, because the affirmative only increases spending towards one form of transportation and does not decrease the funding towards highways and railroads that they say assist in the success of the rich, the gap between the rich and the poor will never be affected. Eric Mann, a member of the Labor Community Strategy Center and an expert cited by my own opponent, states that equity demands a mass movement of funds from highway and rail interests to bus systems, from suburban communities, corporate developers, rail contractors, to the urban working class of color. Such a transformation will not happen and cannot happen until a mass movement of the transit dependent is built from the bottom up. This is the only way to give equal opportunities to the rich and the poor. However, since the affirmative proposal does not do this, there will be no relative equity between the classes. The last disadvantage of the affirmative plan is that it undermines the state government authorities and therefore breaks the balance of power between the national and state government, also known as federalism. Right now, President Obama has given infrastructure decisions to the state. His approach to economic restructuring has tended toward the more permissive end of the federalist spectrum. The affirmative gives power to the federal government, ignoring the fact that many areas do not have the resources to account for the expenses that come along with an investment. The affirmative plan creates whole new transportation programs for intrastate and intracity level. The federal government has no authority to work on projects for travel within a state, just interstate travel. Because federalism is proven to be effective in systematically establishing democracies, other countries have also modeled the U.S. federalism. According to Stephen Celebrity, an associate professor at Northwestern University School of Law, U.S. federalism has become the order of day for numerous countries such as Germany, Australia, Canada, Brazil, and Argentina. Federalism is effective in reducing conflict and keeps the overburdened federal government's power checked. Not only that, it is the key to continued progression of human rights in several countries because it gives citizens the right to rule their own state without having to fear opposition from their federal government. Federalism has also been effective in promoting democracy across the world and the U.S. Our political system right now is based on a democratic governmental system that was originally founded by the ideas of federalism. As you can see, federalism is an important component to our political system and the international political system. Its absence causes great harm. The affirmative proposal has the right goals in mind, yet it is flawed and must be rejected. I'm open for cross-ex.
Do we live in a country where everyone has equal access and opportunities?
I believe that the government tries their best to give everyone equal opportunities.
So is there a gap between the rich and the poor?
Yes, but your plan doesn't decrease the gap between the rich and the
But do
poor.
we have a moral obligation to address this gap?
Yes, but what I'm saying is that your plan doesn't do that.
Okay, so is fiscal discipline how wisely we spend our money?
Yes, it is.
Are plans that create jobs worth investing in?
Yeah, but like I said, you guys are only creating temporary jobs. So after the mass transit system is built, those jobs are going to be going away.
So you claim that the problem now is that we're in debt, right?
Yes, we are in debt
So
right now.
are you aware of how long our country has been in debt?
For a couple of years now.
Okay. College stay often costs more than a person can afford. Is it fair to say that students take out loans and end up in debt because of these loans?
Yeah, but they also spend the rest of their money paying back that loan. And a lot of times they
Do
still
you
can't
think
pay
going to
back that
college-
loan.
Do you think going to college is worth it even though you have to go in debt?
For some people, it's actually not worth it because they still have to spend the rest of their life
those
paying
other
off that
people-
loans.
For those other people, that is worth it. Why is it good debt when they work?
It's a risk. It's a big risk that students are taking. That's why we're saying that this transportation infrastructure is actually a big risk that's actually not worth taking.
So what is the problem with a decrease of federalism?
What we are saying is that when you guys decrease federalism, what you guys are doing is that you're destroying the balance of power between the federal government and the state government. So that gives the federal government way too much power.
How does this impact
What we're saying is that our federalism, our democratic system right now, which is based on federalism, other countries have modeled our democracy right now.
How
So
does
we
that
need to make
impact
sure
other
that
countries?
our federal government and our federal power is stayed in check so that other countries can also model it because we are a model
so
country.
wouldn't this plan make America more democratic because it's a generous act by the federal government that tries to help increase opportunities?
No, but the thing is that the President Obama has already given infrastructure decision to the states. So if the federal government decide to do this plan, then he's going back on his own words. So that means he's actually
so you're
ruining
claiming that our plan will destroy our democratic model towards other countries?
Yes.
Okay, that's all.
Hey. My name is Tyree Williams. I represent the second part of the negative block to refute the affirmative. The affirmative proposal has the most noble of intentions. However, America will never fully embrace mass transit because the car culture is so ingrained in modern society. Moreover, they fail to address the systemic issues surrounding the implementation of mass transit projects. First, increased transit will not be sustainable due to a lack of riders. They claim investing in public transportation will help urban economies. However, we cannot assume that just because we put a bus, subway, or high-speed rail in an urban community that people will ride them. In fact, there is increasing evidence that citizens prefer to drive their own personal vehicles. Fred Barnes of the San Francisco Examiner says, people prefer to travel by car because it's convenient, which mass transit rarely is. You can go from place to place directly, choosing your own route and schedule. We can do so day and night. You can stop as frequently as you like for any reason. This phenomenon has a name. Its name is freedom. The search for this freedom has pushed Americans toward their own personal vehicles for years upon years. The University of California Transportation Center conducted a study showing that in terms of the market share of metropolitan travel, public transit has for decades been losing riders to private vehicles in the U.S. Nationally, only 2.1% of all transit was by public transportation in 2001, compared to 85.8% by private vehicle, 9.9% by foot and bicycle, and 2.2% by other means. This is empirical evidence showing that citizens would rather walk and ride their bikes than ride mass transit. People don't ride the transit that we already have because it's flawed, and they're not changing the systems. All they're doing is just adding more bad transit. Second, investments in mass transportation spur a phenomenon called gentrification, which does nothing more than amplify the plight faced by the lower class. The Michael Dukakis Center for Urban and Regional Policy at Northeastern University conducted a study showing that surrounding new transit investments, and is quoted as saying, if gentrification is defined as patterns of neighborhood change marked by rising housing costs and income, we found evidence of gentrification in nearly every newly transit-served area that we studied. As investments in transit increases, property costs rise, and the urban community gets priced out. Rent and taxes suddenly become more expensive, and since the same people that the affirmative claims they're helping can't pay their bills anymore, they lose their homes. Transit investments often begin a trend of urban renewal, or more appropriately, urban removal. This is gentrification, an ugly way to tear apart communities and destroy cultural traditions. When landlords see an influx of a more affluent population, they often increase rent to accommodate for the change, further attracting the wealthy and displacing the lower class that will no longer be able to afford this housing. The affirmative says we have a moral obligation to assist those in poverty. But is it any more ethical, any more moral, to ruin the quality of life for one group of people in favor of another? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Fatah Adden. I'm from Boston. I'll represent the second affirmative speaker. The negative argues that our plan will do more harm than good, but you have to look at how over-exaggerated their claims are. First, they make claims of economic collapse and the loss of our national policies. However, our plan will not hurt our economy, but benefit it. Mass transit is the epitome of fiscal discipline. It will help the economy avoid inflation and depression. It is an economic stimulus that will provide jobs. According to Heather Bushy, a senior economist at American Progress, investments in transportation infrastructure have in the past boosted employment rates. Written on 2011, she states, increased investments by the DOT and other agencies due to the stimulus bill saved or created 1.1 million jobs in the construction industry and 400,000 jobs in manufacturing. In addition, mass transit reduces congestion, which in turn helps efficiency and our economy. The American Public Transportation Association stated in 2012, investment in public transportation can reduce traffic congestion by shifting people away from their cars. These statistics prove that an investment in mass transit is fiscally disciplined. Our opponents define fiscal discipline as how wise we spend our money. Not spending our money is not a solution, but spending our money on a plan that helps the economy through job creation and through reducing expenses is a solution. There is no lack of fiscal discipline because our plan ends up helping the economy, so an economic collapse is very improbable. Our opponents also claim that we undermine state authority and break federalism by allowing the federal government to implement mass transit. However, is mass transit the straw that breaks the camel's back? The one action that ruins democratic nations across the globe? No. Even if the federal government is the sole actor in this plan, so what? Our opponents argue that our plan will undermine our image as the guardian of human rights around the world. In the status quo, we kill people with unmanned drones. Since 9/11, we have tortured people, kept prisoners in Guantanamo Bay without trial or due process. Currently, our government uses surveillance to spy on American citizens in the name of security. To argue that the federal government investing in urban mass transit will hurt our example for other democracies is hollow and arbitrary, given these realities. Our opponents also claim that there will be no riders because no one will give up their cars. But first of all, our main goal is to help those in poverty, those who don't have cars. The negative speaks about freedom, but this freedom is limited to those who have cars. The people who don't have cars, the people who are impoverished, don't have this freedom. Secondly, as gas prices soared in the past, the use of mass transit increased. Steve Hargreaves, a staff writer at CNN, states, ridership hit one of the highest levels in decades, with officials crediting high gas prices. In 2011, Americans took 10.4 billion trips on mass transit. That's a 2.3% increase over 2010. When people with cars face high gas prices, they switch their way of mobility, going from cars to riding mass transit. The negative also argues over-exaggerations of whole communities being displaced due to gentrification. But a study reported on June 2008 by Barbara Kvyat, a staff writer for Time magazine, reveals that the statistics of students of low-income residents becoming displaced are false and skewed. A study at the University of Colorado, University of Pittsburgh, and Duke University examined census data for more than 15,000 neighborhoods and found that low-income households did not disproportionately leave gentrifying areas. Studies done at 3 different universities revealed that large, disproportionate numbers of poor residents are not being kicked out of their neighborhoods. Even if some residents are being displaced, the cities can take many steps to avoid the negative effects of gentrification. According to Leslie Reed and Robert Edelman, professors at Georgia State University, cities can take many steps to avoid the negative effects of gentrification. The city of Atlanta created a task force to deal with gentrification by making housing affordable. With affordable housing, the low-income residents are not displaced and can stay in their neighborhood. This proves that the cities can address the harmful effects, and so with an increase of mass transit, we will not harm the poor residents we want to and will help. It is our moral obligation to help those in need, but we will never propose a plan that will hurt one group of people to benefit another. Thank you.
All right. Final negative speech. Better make it good. Okay. Like in Robert Frost's poem, The Road Not Taken, today you will have to vote on a road that to some degree may not be very popular, but will make all the difference. While the affirmative is a path to many prosperity, it is a road to many disasters. First of all, the affirmative does not solve for the things that they originally say that they solve for. Mobility will not solve for those in absolute poverty because even if people have a ride to go to a job, they can still be poor because maybe they don't have a job. They are bankrupt or in debt. Mass transit is not a solution for those in poverty. Also notice that they didn't answer our relative poverty, our relative inequity argument in our first debate, in our first speech. Next, the spending disadvantage. The affirmative has given many statistics on why spending on transportation infrastructure stimulates the economy. However, this stimulus will only be short-lived. After the mass transit system is built, what will happen to those construction jobs? They will be gone. When the jobs are gone, not only will we have a new mass transit system, but we will also fall into a deeper debt crisis because the end product will not justify the means. They undermine fiscal discipline because this investment is not a smart investment. Secondly, look closely at their evidence. Their evidence only talks about transportation infrastructure in general, not mass transit. Therefore, their evidence is irrelevant to the case. The affirmative's plan will not make the economy better, but actually hurt it even more and may cause another Great Depression. Now for the next argument, federalism. They have said that the federal government's involvement for the mass transit system is important in effectively implementing the plan and has been proven effective in getting the jobs done. We know that federal funding and state planning is needed in order to implement the plan effectively. What we are saying is the affirmative only mentioned the United States federal government as the sole actor of the plan, not the state government. Because the affirmative did not mention a collaboration between the federal government and state government within their proposal, they absolutely undermine the power of federalism. Federalism must work its way up to the federal government involvement, not down. Therefore, they trigger all the impacts mentioned earlier in the debate: a shift in checks and balance system, a reduction in the promotion of human rights, and international democracy. They say that our impacts are exaggerated, but these are impacts that have happened before and have caused great harm. Therefore, that's why we are saying that we need to make sure we implement and have federalism so that these impacts don't happen again and so that we don't deal with these harms again. They also claim in their previous speech that people will ride public transit because they are targeting riders who do not own cars. If that is the case, then wouldn't they just be adding to the pollution by the cars that they criticized earlier? So no one is leaving their cars for transit, and the people that ride their bikes are now using CO2 emitting public transportation, then the pollution in urban communities will only get worse, especially since rising gas prices will not make people switch to bus or subway. If gas prices are what determines rider transit rideship, then people who have been riding public transportation, then people would have been riding public transportation a long time ago. Then transit systems would not need an increase in federal investment because of how profitable they would have been. Spending more money won't change anything. Finally, the affirmative's plan conceded the fact that mass transit causes people to be displaced from their homes when they stated, even if some residents are being displaced, the cities can take many steps to avoid the negative effects of gentrification. The example of cities creating task forces and providing builders incentives with incentives is presumptuous. Every city does not have the resources to provide incentives to pay an anti-gentrification team. But let's say that the cities did give builders incentives to create low-income housing. Won't the people who do manage to stay on the same street have to move out of their homes and into this cheaper residence? We all know builders who want to make money will never build low-income housing next to a $300,000 house because even if they do, they won't be worth $300,000 anymore. So the original residents will have to live in some lower class corner of the city in a separate unequal housing. This only escalates the socioeconomical and societal injustices even further. This is gentrification at its worst. The affirmative might say that gentrification does not exist, but the fact that they gave evidence citing Atlanta's task force proved that it does exist and that it is relevant. Even if you support an investment in mass transit, you must reject this plan because it has way too many flaws. Vote negative. If ever there is a day that we vote for a mass transit project, today is not the day.
I'll be delivering the last speech for the affirmative. America has been existent for 224 years, and only for 2 years have we been debt-free. In 1789, America was in a $71 million debt. Debt seems to be an issue for the negative team, but debt has existed since America's creation, but it hasn't broken us. What keeps this debt crisis from causing the impacts the negative team has proposed? Simple investment in ourselves. Millions of American kids take out loans and acquire debt to go to college because they know the investment in themselves is worth it and it pays long-term dividends. The federal government, in partnership with private business, has kept our economic heart pumping by making investments in its people. It is time for the federal government to provide adequate transportation to our urban poor. This is a matter of accessibility and opportunity. My opponents cannot deny the impacts of mass transit on personal and economic levels, helping young students get to school and pursue dreams, and saving our nation $67.7 billion in 1 year, while also having the prospects create 40,000 jobs. Does that not sound like wise spending? 4 examples of freedoms mass transit can bring are: the urban poor can access jobs that are outside of their neighborhoods. The creation of mass transit directly creates jobs. The instant jobs are construction, and this project will take years. Mass transit doesn't appear overnight. The creation of mass transit will create permanent jobs, such as management and security. Lastly, businesses will begin forming in these urban neighborhoods, and this boosts the urban economies. My opponents are concerned that through the federal government implementing this plan, America's global leadership and influence will be broken, and other countries will crumble as well. But the impacts of their federalism arguments do not apply to our plan, because in comparison to what America has already done, our plan seems quite generous, and it is also beneficial. Their impacts are huge leaps of logic. One concerning the environment: what is worse, 30 people in 30 different cars, or 30 people in one train cart or in one bus? Also, in terms of ridership, most Americans in the status quo cannot afford a personal automobile. Mass transit is the only access the urban poor will have to transportation. There may not be extremely high ridership rates as of right now, but that is due to mass transit not being sufficient enough in terms of getting people to certain places. But through the passing of our plan, it will become sufficient. Our opponents have contended persuasive gentrification arguments. But when viewing these arguments, consider the fact that the University of Colorado, University of Pittsburgh, and Duke University have all found that low-income, non-white households did not disproportionately leave gentrifying areas. 3 very credible universities in 3 different regions have all concluded our urban poor do not leave gentrifying areas disproportionately. My opponents' gentrification claims are hyperbolic. Is it true that people can be displaced? Yes. But through proper implementation, we can avoid the minuscule impacts of gentrification. For example, in the city of Boston, we have efficient transportation systems and also subsidized housing in the same areas, in the same neighborhoods, and things work. There are many examples of successful and beneficial mass transit systems. Transportation infrastructure is a part of the American narrative. Today is not just a policy debate. Today is the next chapter in this American narrative. Imagine if we didn't make investments in transportation infrastructure in the 19th and 20th century due to fear of economic collapse. Where would America be? Fortunately, we have been wise enough to think and spend money wisely to ensure we help our people by giving them accessibility and opportunity, and our nation yields long-term benefits. Mass transit is the next necessary chapter in this American narrative. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that wonderful debate. Now we have the interactive part of the morning. All of you have a ballot in front of you, so take some time, review your notes, and make a decision of should we invest in mass transit in urban areas or not. I'll give you some time. Try not to consult too much with your friends. This is like your decision. And then we'll come around, and once you've signed your ballot, just raise your hand and somebody will come pick it up from you.
they get high scores too. Yeah, okay, and that's good. That's good because you need that balance, you know?
Has all the ballots been collected? Ballots? Let's give them a hand again. Young people, I want you to pay attention that these young people are students in high school. We have a couple in college. But you see how they articulate, you see how they actually gave the argument. So, let's give them a hand again. Luke, I think we had some serious participation here.
You rated higher than I did.
I changed some. I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, because certain things was good. Like, wait.
Yes, I'm finished. Thank you.
Is that a 9?
78. Okay.
So those are tied. So
Yes.
so you're calling a tie?
Yep.
All right.
You did, you brought it up?
Yeah, because I actually, like, I look at my notes and I was like, so I'm a little particular for mistakes, like, or mistakes, like,
Yeah.
you're up there, it's like, if you do this all the time,
You should be
yeah,
right
you
on.
should be on it, or you shouldn't look at the paper so much, you kind of know what the paper says, and then I've seen younger kids talk about, not necessarily debate, but just talk about things, and they haven't looked at anything. So I was like,
People keep their point. And articulate.
On a ballot count of 6 votes for, 1 vote against, and 1 judge who called an absolute tie in the debate, it is for the affirmative team from Boston. Now, when we did this exact same debate in Washington, D.C., about 2 months ago, the negative won in a landslide. So we might have to do this a third time as a rubber match to figure out which side is really correct. But that's kind of the thing about debate that's amazing about it, is that our students go out and they have to argue both sides of these topics every time they go out and have to learn about all aspects of an issue, and that sometimes they win and sometimes they lose, but they always have a great educational process and have a fun time. So we really hope that you enjoyed this demonstration debate and that you can bring these skills back to your communities and your way of increasing awareness of transportation issues. We're going to now turn to our panel of distinguished judges quickly to get them to give us a little feedback on what was the most compelling arguments and what really stuck with them from the debate to kind of help inform their decisions. And then after that, to our student judges, we're going to do a little Q&A. If you have any questions of the debaters about the debate process, about how they prepared for the debate, or about any arguments that you thought of in the debate, start thinking of your questions now, and Mr. Reynard will come around with a microphone so that we can have those questions afterward, and you can have a conversation with our students about their experience debating transportation for the past year. But I'll now ask Ms. Washington what her thoughts on the debate.
Well, I tell you, I was very, very impressed with all of you. Congratulations. It takes courage to do this, but you're also very, very gifted, and it was inspiring for me. First of all, I was impressed with the amount of research you've done. Absolutely incredible, and that takes a lot of time. And once you do that kind of research, you have to sort of internalize it as well. And for you guys, I thought that you really did internalize it, because you, even Elvis, gave a personal example about Boston. And so I think that in a debate situation, if we can feel it, then that makes a difference. Also, but the delivery was great. You were very knowledgeable, excellent research. The important thing was that also you all closed beautifully. And, you know, there's this old adage that when you listen to the last person in the room, and so your last comments really are the most important, I think, because that's what people sort of, and you closed with passion. So I'm going to congratulate you all. You did an incredible job. Tyree, your delivery was incredible. The fact that you knew your information, you were able to deliver it also in a way that you didn't have to look at your notes very much at all. And of course, Luke said this was your second debate, so you've internalized it also. And so you all presented your facts in a very, very compelling way. And so I congratulate you all.
Ms. Mariah Stanley from APTA.
Hi, everybody. I think you did a great job. That's first and foremost. I think you all did a great job. I think you all compelled me when you said you want 30 people in 30 cars or 30 people in one train or bus, and that is very, very true. I don't think people think about that when they think of convenience, in that that transportation can be convenient when you do use trains and buses. It's just if we do put money into those projects, then they could be more convenient than you all having different cars, because people put a lot of money into their individual vehicles and not necessarily into public transit infrastructure. So I thought that was good. And I think you all were good. I think, Tyree, you are very natural. I think you are very comfortable with speaking. I think you guys are younger and you will get that in time, but I think you guys did a great job for being as young as you are. And I think once you debate more, you will be more comfortable speaking and comfortable about your topic. I think you guys talked a little fast. I'm a fast talker, so I get that, but I guess I would say slow down just a bit. And I think you definitely have a voice for debate. You definitely persuade people without even knowing what you're talking about at all. You just have a very persuasive voice. And I think that you can make people believe what you're talking about, even if that's not what they think. Because you kind of changed my mind a bit, and I was like, hold on, that's not what I was thinking. So I think you all did a great job. I think you should all give yourself a round of applause, and I would love to see you all again. That's great.
Good morning. You all were fabulous. Very good job. We have to say that first and foremost. And I was impressed with just the amount, as it was mentioned before, of research and facts that you all knew. Bam, bam, bam. You were spitting them out, knowing your facts, knowing your topics. Elvis, I thought it was really, really good when you brought out the point of why transportation is needed, especially because of poverty, violence. You brought in those topics that kind of hit home. I was like, wow, very impressive when I heard that. And I thought that both of you, Fatah and Tyree, did great on your cross-examinations. Because, you know, the former journalist in me came out. I was like, bam, bam, they were asking those questions left and right, and I really enjoyed that. And I thought that Tazikia, is that correct? Did I say it correctly? Say it for me, please. Taskia. Excuse me, Taskia. You were convincing to me. I didn't necessarily, and it doesn't matter what side you agreed on. What convinced me was your tone, because you were very authoritative. You knew exactly what you wanted to say, and that's what convinced me, especially the line that you used towards the end when you said, today is not the day to make that happen. Today is not the day. You were very, very convincing on that part. But you all did a wonderful job, as you mentioned too, Elvis. Just slow down a little bit, but you did a great job, and you all had a great knowledge of your topic, knowing the research. And that definitely takes time to know that and to be able to incorporate that into your lives and able to incorporate your cities into this and knowing the facts, incorporating other things. So you all did a wonderful job, and keep up the good work. We're so proud of you.
Good morning. It was a real pleasure watching you. I will tell you, it's tough to set aside your an entire professional career devoted to transit. But I will say, your argument, one more time on your first name, I'm sorry. Taskia. Your argument regarding federalism, I thought was really interesting. Seeing as how I really didn't buy in the gentrification issue, but the federalism argument was interesting. And when you've got a tough argument to make, making it bigger than the specific issue is always a great tactic. All of you modulated your voices very well. Obviously, you are an excellent speaker, and that will serve you well no matter what you do. It was a real pleasure watching you. All of you ended so strong. That was really a pleasure to watch you. Thank you so much.
Well, I tell you, I want to know where you were when I was building the Silver Line, because I could have used the help. But I will tell you that I was just blown away with impressions about the fact that the next generation of transit leaders is safe and secure with the information that you guys have put forward. I think that, you know, to echo what they said about Tyree, he's got a great voice. He had great prominence when he gave you the cross-examination. I thought that was phenomenal. Taskia, you're going to be a great doctor, because you could convince me to take an operation. But I will tell you that, you know, I applaud the fact that you only had 35 minutes to do this, and to be able to get as much information out there as you possibly could so that you could speak as fast as you possibly could. This was phenomenal. I'm sure that everybody in this audience gained a lot from this, because it's difficult to argue, like my colleague said, this is my career is in public transportation and making sure that we develop it, not take it away. But you did convince me that I had another way of looking at it, and the federalism argument was one that was compelling. So thank you.
Well done, everyone. Due to a scheduling mix-up, I wasn't here to hear the whole thing, but what I heard blew me away. You know, I just want to take the time to commend you on your professionalism and ask a question. Was, for each team, was either team either persuaded by the other one's argument? No. So your position is still the same. Now, in the position that you were in, did you believe it going into it? Meaning you did not, okay? Okay, and the point that I'm making there is that you were all believable in your stance, meaning that even if you didn't agree with the position that was given to you, you presented it that way, and that's what professionalism is about. So continue that trend. Again, I think you was well spoken. I will echo some of the things that I've heard today, such as slowing it down just a little bit, you know. But outside of that, you know, continue to support everything you say with facts. You know, you can follow it up with your opinion after that, which you did. You know the difference between opinions and assumptions, and you'll continue to do well. But thank you.
Well, besides echoing what everyone had to say, I just want to say today, really, there's no winners or losers. And in my opinion, I saw winners on both sides. So I think it's fascinating that you can take a topic that you don't necessarily know a lot about and then argue the evidence for or against. So that's fascinating to me, and then be able to represent that in the way that you do. You know, communication really, the words that we speak is only 6 to 7% of how we communicate, and the rest of it is your poise, your passion, how you speak, your conviction, your eye contact, and all of you were incredible at doing that. So I just wanted to say that besides the words that you spoke, you communicated your passion in the topic incredibly well. The other thing I wanted to say is that you've both done incredible and outstanding research in both areas, and I'm not sure if doing research in the negative or the positive continues to keep you in your decision about what you spoke about, but I'm just fascinated that you were both able to do that with such fervor. I think that it is interesting that Elvis spoke about putting congested communities and taking cars off the roads and actually putting people into public transportation. I live in a congested urban community, and I try to keep my personal opinion out of it. But I was swayed by, you know, education, and also the lack of funds sometimes stops people from using certain things, but in New York City, large urban communities, the rich, the poor, everyone uses public transportation because of the way the city is set up, and it's just the easiest, most economical way to get around. But I do have to say that I am extremely proud, encouraged, and really happy that that Julie asked us to have you here. So thank you all for coming and for arguing as passionately as you did about the topic.
Well, good morning. It was very relevant to me listening to your debate, because we're going through the very debate in Atlanta as we speak about how much investment do we make in mass transit. And I hope that each of you, as you move on with your careers, that even if, Tazkia, if you become a doctor, and Tyree, wherever your career pursuits take you, and Elvis and Fatah, wherever your careers take you all as well, that you keep mass transit in mind, that you become advocates of one thing, one position or another, because none of you said you didn't like mass transit. You all just wondered about the way we invested in and so forth. The things that really stood out for me was listening to the arguments about, does the relative gap difference change? Because if you continue to invest in highways while investing in mass transit at the same levels, will you really truly make an investment change, or will you really make a dent in that gap? And the other thing that really stood out was Elvis's argument when talking about how America's image could be harmed by the change in the Federalist model and what have you. And when he used the drone attacks and the NSA scandal and so forth, to equate those two things together, I thought he did a fantastic job, sounding like a crafty politician, and laying out, hey, look, how dare you make that argument? You know, I thought that was very well done. All of you, I think you had great pace. I think you had great information, and I just hope you stay involved in mass transit because our future needs you.
Are there any questions from our student judges? Do you have any questions about the arguments made in the debate or about our students' experience with debate? They would be happy to help out. We're just going to bring the microphone around. We got a question here. Just a microphone over here. And then I'll pass the microphone around up here to our to the students up here so they can answer. If I can figure out how to get this up.
I'm Christopher James from the STI Institute in Greensboro, and I was just wondering how when you were generating your debates, how your personal feelings impacted what you wanted to say and maybe how you wanted to put things together.
Sure.
One thing in debate is, like, it doesn't really matter what your personal experiences are, because, like, in this debate, we were given negative and they were given affirmative. So whether we liked mass transit or not, it didn't matter. We have to act like we didn't. We have to act like I mean, you know, not that we didn't like it, but the fact that it wasn't profitable. So it didn't really, I guess you could say as debaters, we have to be good actors and actresses. We have to, like, convince you that we actually believe in what we actually stand. So, yeah.
Yeah, just echo what she said. Also, I've come, like, through researching, I've come to realize that a lot of times we've had experiences on both sides. You know, I've had a good experience in the transit system. I've had a good experience in a car. So when you do research and when you're presenting an argument for either side, you have to draw from that experience that is relevant to your argument. So it's about, like, you're going to have experiences and you're going to have opinions for both sides. So just you have to, I guess, amplify the ones that support your argument.
Affirmative, you guys got some comments?
So Tyree just kind of hit it. Like, you have different types of experiences, and there's sometimes where, like, your personal experiences help you make your own arguments, like your own arguments on your own. Like the one I brought about Boston, I actually do use mass transit, and it helps me become more persuasive. I feel as if, like, it's my own argument and it's actually real for me. So I'm not just using someone else. I actually argue it better with my own emotion behind it. So it depends on how you really extract your feelings or experiences and apply it into the debate round. Not to say that you should always do that, because sometimes it can end foully, but there's times where you can use your emotions and experiences to help motivate you or help you persuade better.
Thanks for the question. Do we have anyone else? Oh, we got it over here.
I'm from A&T. My name is Ariel Remus from the STI program at Greensboro. And is the hardest part of debating having to come back, you know, for your reflections and make sure you know the other side's, you know, kind of topic?
So what's the hardest part of debating?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the hardest part of debating for me is just being inside the round, because in regular debate, you don't know what the team is going to argue, so you have to take notes on what they say. You have to argue against it. You have to make analytics. Think about things thoroughly. You have to get outside of the debate, see what's happening, and then come back inside so you know exactly what to say and how to answer what they say. So I think that's the hardest part of the debate, being inside the round and doing having to argue back without knowing what they're going to say beforehand.
Just like he said, like, for this public debate, like, we kind of knew what the other side was going to say. So that came with the preparation, and we definitely, like, had to tone ourselves down and not talk so fast, things like that. But in actual policy debate, you have no idea what the opponent is going to say. So, and you have like 8 minutes of prep time throughout the whole entire round. And a regular debate round is like an hour and 30 minutes. So And so that 8 minute, you have to use still like 2 minutes after the speech, 2 minutes after that speech, things like that. And you have to use that 2 minutes to write down, to think of everything that they say, think of arguments against it, find evidence within your own evidence box to support it, because claims isn't enough. You have to have evidence to back it up, and you have to convince the judge at the same time. So yeah, it's definitely very difficult in actual policy debate.
Yeah, I not well. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's that's the thing. It's a lot of hard parts about debate. Those are like the big main ones, and there's also the part about when the other team presents an argument that you've never heard before. Like, cause like when you have a topic like transportation infrastructure, you have a general idea. Like, oh, they're gonna talk about trains or highways or blah blah blah. But then you might hear some affirmative or some plan that you thought like had nothing to do with what you were thinking of. So then you have to like look at your notes while you're giving your speech, and then try to suppress your nerves, and like as you're looking at your notes, try to think on the spot of a clever argument and look confident at the same time. So it's yeah, it's kind of hard to look confident when you don't know what you're saying. So for me, yeah, that's kind of the hard part.
Thanks. Do we have any more questions?
Yes, I wanted to say, first of all, that the audience was just so attentive. You could hear a pin drop in here. That was incredible. I mean, I tried to look out of the corner of my eye, but it was just so great. So I think there's some folks in here who might be interested in debating. How do you prepare, and what advice would you give them?
So when starting debate, when you first start, I'd suggest just take it for what it is. You get evidence, and you go into debate round and you debate, and it's an experience that you enjoy. You do it, and as you get higher levels, then of course the competition increases, and that's when you become better. But as you first join debate, take it for what it is. Really enjoy the learning experience of how to be a good debater, because once that has already happened, everything else falls into place, and becoming a better debater becomes easier. Like once you know the fundamentals, researching becomes easier, speaking becomes easier, persuasion becomes easier. So just enjoy the learning experience, and as you get higher, things will get more tough, and as things get tougher, you find it easier to apply the things you learn into your daily life. So any little speaking tips, any little thing you do in a debate round can be applicable to daily situations as you get higher in debate.
See, it's still like that question is still fresh for me because I've only been debating for about 6 months now. So when you first come into debate, something they don't tell you is that for the most part, debate is a game with like no rules. I am so serious. Like the only rules really in an actual debate are the time constraints. After that, really the debaters make the rules. So if you do something that the other team thinks is against the rules, it's not enforced unless they make that argument. So it's the thing. It's like any other sport and activity. It's like basketball. You have to learn the fundamentals first, and then that's when you come and after you get comfortable with it, you can be creative, create your own rules, do things that's new, make new arguments, and really put on a good show after you understand what you're doing. So.
When I first got into debate, I was a sophomore, and I didn't really like debate. I just did it because my dad told me to do it. And now, and the thing is, my coach, she's so crazy. She put me in varsity automatically. She didn't even let me go through the novice rounds. So I had to, immediately just get into that position where I knew what I was doing. And a lot of it, I had no idea what to do. I didn't know what to expect. And the one thing that I had to really, understand was speed reading. In debate, we have this tactic. It's called spreading. And basically what it is speed reading. So the amount of time that you have in debate, you're allowed to read the important thing is to get as much arguments and information as possible. And the other team, their burden is to answer every single one of those arguments that you make. So the faster you talk, the more arguments you can make. And also another thing, the faster you talk, the crazier you sound. So the other team, might miss an argument, or is like, oh, that's not important, who cares? Or might not even have heard or noticed the argument, and you automatically lose. So that's the one thing that I had to learn, was actually understanding what they're saying, because that speed reading is the one thing that got to me.
Any more questions?
Luke, I just wanted to make an observation. Elvis is going home after the tours today, but he'll be back to do the student oratorical on Tuesday at the scholarship luncheon. So I don't know what he has planned, but I imagine we're going to be pleased. Who had a question?
Good morning. My name is Lou Miller. I'm a board member from VIA Metropolitan Transit Authority in San Antonio. I agree with the affirmative's argument about the future of mass transit. I'm hoping that the negative can answer this particular question for me because you made a very valid point. How do we bring our streetcar, which is supposed to be coupled with transit-oriented development, into the impoverished areas, improve the economic conditions of those areas, without displacing the poor and the impoverished?
Well, no, I'll give him this one for free. Okay, coming from Detroit, it's an area that's really heavily dealing with gentrification right now, especially like Midtown, downtown area, where they're building an M1 light rail through like the main street in Detroit, and like the argument I was making, property costs are going up. There are people that are, have their houses are being, foreclosed on. They can't afford different like they can't afford like the things that they could have afforded a couple months ago, because like the argument that they made, when you invest in mass transit, businesses get attracted. When a business sees that there's a great transportation system and that people have access to get to their business, oh, I want to put my new Starbucks here, So it's one of those things where it's a difficult balance that I don't think that we've found yet. I don't think we've found the solution to that yet. And not having the solution is why we're able to have an argument against what they're saying, because it's still up for debate. And like a critical part of debate is they call it impact calculus, where that there's an impact to both sides, but you have to have the ability to make your impact sound the greatest. So there's going to be gentrification. There are going to be people that don't want to ride, but there are also going to be people in poverty that benefit from mass transit. So it's a cost analysis, basically. You have to figure out what's the biggest benefit to the biggest risk.
You guys got a solution?
I don't think it's really a solution, but it should be like the way you develop and model it. I think Boston has come up with a smart way to do so. Like, we have the MBTA in Boston, and we also have subsidized housing, as my partner said in his speech. We have projects and a lot of areas near the transportation system. So we have many different lines: orange line, blue line, and around each line there are subsidized housing projects. There's so in Boston we found a solution to deal with like gentrification. I think it's just aid from the government, aid from the housing, so the people that are living there can get help too from the government. So it's not hard to live in neighborhoods that are being gentrified, and neighborhoods that are developing transportation systems.
Good morning. Right here. Good morning. I'm Kenneth Jones from the home of the basketball world champions. I just happen to work for Miami-Dade Transit, okay? All right. Hey, don't be hating. Okay, we just got started, okay? We just got started. That's all right. We appreciate Alan. We appreciate him. He saved the day for us. We'll give him that. But this is kind of on a personal note. Having been a shy fella coming up, Tazkia, you already told us your daddy made you do it, okay? And that's good. I can relate. I got 6 daughters of my own. But debating was always scary for me. That's why I never did it. It's really always was a fear factor I never overcame. I was just interested for the rest of you, and you saying you're only doing it for 6 months, and these young guys here that I met in the elevator coming over here, I'm really proud of you guys, all of you. But how did you get into it, and was that a factor for you? Were you guys, any of you ever shy? Did you have to, and did it help you overcome that shyness?
Okay, so my brother debated before me, and that was really inspirational. He came home with trophies all the time. I was like, hey, I want trophies too. My mom was always proud of him. I was like, yeah, I can do that too. And then my freshman history teacher is my debate coach right there, Ravi Singh. He opened up the class at the beginning of the year. If you do debate, you get extra credit. And that sounded pretty intriguing, and I heard there was food at the debate practice. So So at first it was this fluffy concept of debating, it's cool, and then when we started actually practicing and looking, of course I got intimidated. I got scared of a packet and kids that have been debating before me and all these papers and facts and people. I don't know how to pronounce these words and I don't know how to read and I don't know how to speak and all these things. But once I started, I realized how powerful my voice was, and that's what kept me with it. I realized I can speak and I can persuade people, and I realized how beneficial this can be. And now when I look at debate, I think about I can put this on my college resume. I think about so many different aspects of what debate can bring versus actually getting over the fear of doing it. The fear of doing it is temporary. Once you get good at it, it becomes second nature, and you realize the benefits it brings.
The same story goes for me. My brother debated before me, and in my school, debate is like a big thing. It's like almost as good as the basketball team. We're looked at greatly, and I think in my school is a legacy. If you have an older brother or older sibling debating, you follow right after them. We have many siblings in our debate team, so that's why I joined debate. And in addition, like you can see, debate brings a lot of opportunities. It gave us this opportunity to come here and debate in this public debate. So debate really helps you for the future, as my partner stated. Helps with a college resume, helps with opportunities like this, and going to Washington and traveling. So debate is really cool, and it helps out for the future too.
Well, the way I started debate, well, I experimented with like different sports, football, basketball. I tried cross country for a day. I hated it. And I was just back and forth with a bunch of different activities until one day, like my mom was basically like, "You're gonna stick with something." So, and I've always been argumentative at nature. And this, like, literally, this is the story. One time I was in the car with my mom, and we're just, like, I kept refuting everything that she said. And she's like, "I know there's a thing for what you're doing right now." She's like, "What is it?" She's like, "I know your school has a debate team, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, practice is on Wednesday." She's like, "I'm not picking you up from school on Wednesday until you go to debate practice." And she was like, "When does it end?" I'm like, 5. She was like, "I'm not picking you up until 5." So I went to debate practice. And it basically stuck with me. So it was one of those things where like you get involved in it, and it is intimidating at first. A lot of people that consider debating that don't, usually their biggest argument is that it seems hard. I was scared. It's really intimidating, and it is. Like especially when I went into my first tournament, and like you see the teams that have their laptops and they have like 90 stickers of all the debate institutes from Emory, Harvard, Stanford. You've been to Boston, you've been to Baltimore, you went to Alaska, like like you went to all of these different debate institutes, and it's like I just came from school. Like, so it's like when you see that it is intimidating, but when you finally get your when you finally get your legs planted, you find out that it's not as bad as it looks at first. So.
Another thing to add, like debate makes like you and your school a family. In my school, we have seniors, juniors, sophomores, freshmen. We all are on the same level when we're debating. We look at seniors as our like best friends. Usually, if we hadn't joined the debate team, we wouldn't be interacting with the seniors or any other people like that. So it makes you connected. And like debate also gives you friends, like friends from Detroit and friends from other tournaments that you make friends with a lot of people. So debate is really cool. And even though it's intimidating, it starts off normal because when you start off, everyone's fresh at debate. Everyone's a novice. No one knows what they're doing. So it's not that scary at first. And once you start learning, everyone gets better at the same time. So everyone's just getting better at the same time. So it's not really that difficult. So it isn't as intimidating as it seems. It starts off easy, and you'll get better as it goes along.
Thank you. We got a question right here in the front.
I'm Jalen Warren. I'm here for representing North Carolina A&T's Transportation Institute. And I was just wondering, what's the hardest part about losing a round, and how does it affect you psychologically during the debate?
So, no, honestly, like, okay, so yeah, it does suck, but I'm not gonna lie. but the thing is, at the same time, like, at the same time, you do realize, like, you figure out what you did wrong, and you figure out what arguments you did wrong, and it helps you, like, to know, okay, next time I know exactly what to do. I mean, I'm retiring after this. I'm not debating, but like, even for future reference, like, I know for him, like, he knows what he did wrong. He knows what we have to do and what we have to prepare for next time. So yeah, it does suck, but at the same time, you do realize what, like, it helps you at the same time.
Yeah, to echo what she said, the debate is a really intense learning experience. Like, and if you've been on any team for anything, it's universal, whether it's debate or chess, like, or basketball or whatever. The coach always tells you have to have a short memory. Like it's right after your loss, you go into the next round. Like, especially at debate tournaments where you, like, the preliminary rounds is back to back to back. Round one's over, you have 2 minutes to get to round two. So you can't even think about that last round you just lost. The only thing you think about is the judges' comments and what you need to do better to win next time. But and psychologically, sometimes you don't care. Like I'm so serious. Like, because after you get into your mindset of, okay, like, as soon as you lose, we're gonna win the next one. If you lose that one, we're gonna win the next one. So you don't care. Like, and then when you get that, like, you can't appreciate a win unless you lose. So you take all of those losses for learning experiences, because you don't understand how good it feels to win until you lose. So, yeah.
I think the hardest part about losing is when you lose a big debate, an important debate. Afterwards, you think back on it. You wish that you could go back into the debate and change the things that you said. So, like thinking back on it is the worst part. Like, thinking what you could have changed, what could have made the difference. And we lost last time, and it's pretty. I'm happy we had a second chance to do so, and this was like our second chance to make it better. And I think, yeah, that's the hardest part of debate: going back, thinking about why you lost and how you can fix it next time.
So you're gonna lose no matter how hard you research or how hard you debate in each round. It's gonna happen. You're gonna lose eventually, but after you lose a couple times, like, I've adopted the mindset, every opportunity to fail is also a chance to shine. So, like, when you go in debate round, of course you have there's a good chance you're gonna lose, but there's also a good chance you're gonna succeed as well. So that's how you have to look at each round, whether you win or lose.
Any more questions?
My question would be, what is the hardest topic that you all have ever had to debate upon, and how did you overcome the pressures of that difficult topic?
So when I was a sophomore, every year is a new resolution. So this year we did transportation infrastructure. The year before that we did should the United States federal government increase investment in space exploration. And the year before that, when I was a sophomore, the topic was, should the United States federal government increase military presence in the following countries? And it was Afghanistan, there was Japan, there was South Korea, things like that. So, and you choose which cases you want to run, and then you go with it. So that was actually my favorite topic, but it was actually the hardest topic because I had no idea what politics was, or like what even goes into like doing something like that. So for me, that was definitely the hardest topic, because you really do have to understand what not only how does it affect the U.S., but how does it affect other countries as well.
Yeah, I guess to go back to what I said earlier, I've only been debating for 6 months, so this is my first topic. But the topic for next year is, should the United States federal government increase its economic engagement in Mexico, Venezuela, or Cuba? So, like, a topic like that is hard. One, because I've done some research, and it's kind of hard to find literature on Venezuela. With Cuba, it's the big overarching topic is the embargo. And then with Mexico, it's, you never know what the other team's going to present. But in terms of like just this past year, like under the resolution, like the hardest topic, like, debate I was in was one where it was actually in my first tournament. It was the last round of the first tournament. Taz remembers, that's why she's laughing. It was, we presented an argument that the United States federal government should invest in hydrogen cars, like hydrogen fueling stations. And like one of our advantages was that, we could, okay. The big part about debate is that all of the impacts are like usually magnified. It usually ends in nuclear war or extinction. Like even though it usually has nothing to do with it. Like somehow there's always an internal link chain from building a gas station to global extinction. So one of our advantages is like, you know, we prevent extinction through solving global warming, through solving CO2, through, you know. Then the other team was like, well, death is good.
They seriously did say that. Their argument was death is good. And we were like, what? And so we lost that round. And it's, yeah, you think you wouldn't lose that round, but these arguments, like, the thing is, in a debate, it doesn't matter how crazy the argument was. It doesn't matter about the argument. What it matters is how well you answer the argument. And we didn't answer it very well. We were so bad at it. Oh my God. We were like, what do you mean death is good? Duh, it's good. It's what? No, we don't want to die. But they won because they said death is good. It's good because they gave their impacts. You know, if we live, what's the bad things that would happen? If we died, what's the good things that would happen? Things like that. And they won. So yeah, like in debate, you go through the craziest arguments, and you really do it doesn't matter how crazy the argument is, you really do have to understand how to answer the argument.
Yeah, just really quick, because I've been talking for a while. Yeah, because it's like, I know you like when you hear that, you're like, how did they argue that death is good? How did they convince the judge that death is good? It was when you get up in the cross-examination, the first question that he asked me, first question, I remember it. He's like, have you ever died? And of course, I'm like, I don't think so. He's like, well, death can feel like a massage, right? He's like, you don't know that death, like, does death hurt? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, and then he gets in his speech, he was like, well, like in cross-sex, death can feel like a massage. We don't know that death is bad. And then, you know, they make arguments that it's bigger than the human. Because, like, their argument is that death is good because if we die, we stop hurting the environment. And the earth, it helps the earth. And the earth is more important than the human race because there are other species here. So, and then the judge thought it was compelling. So, yeah.
All right, anything not death good that was a hard argument for you guys to answer?
So this argument, this topic, it's in this year's topic about transportation infrastructure. The case was about making crystals underneath the road to generate kinetic energy. And that case is so hard to answer or to talk about because I don't know exactly. It's called piezoelectric, and it's all over the place. Like there's no specific evidence to answer that. So like it's really crazy. It's really out of the box case. So I don't know how you would answer that. Talking about crystals and kinetic energies, it's all over the place. I don't know. That was very hard.
Any more specific questions about piezoelectricity? Oh, we got another question here.
I got one more question. Do senators and other representatives attend the debates, and do bills get passed because of your debates?
No. Like, the thing is, we have this, there's things called disadvantages. So every plan has an advantage, right? The affirmative plan. And the negative, they say all the disadvantages. So we have this one argument, it's called a politics disadvantage. So basically what we're saying is that if we do the affirmative plan, then a certain bill won't be passed. And that bill is more important than the affirmative plan. So therefore, we should not do the affirmative plan so that this bill can be passed. And so, no, they never get passed. No one really cares about what we do. And I guess sometimes senators can come if you invite them, whatever, if you get lucky. But yeah, like everything that happens within the debate is within that room. So all the things that we've debated right now, it's within this room. This is the debate world, right? You have to get into this debate mindset. And when you debate up there, you have to, like, I mean, obviously in real life, a nuclear war would never happen. But when you get up there, you have to say a nuclear war will happen if you don't do mass transit. Like, it's just something that'll just happen, right? So, yeah.
Sometimes, you know, local officials come and, you know, help out and judge public debates. But for the most part, our debates are done by wonderful volunteers that come in and judge from their communities and our cities. And it's a debate between usually just the 4 debaters and the judge, and then kind of 57 of those will happen at a time within a high school, and that'll happen 6 times in a weekend, and that'll happen 6 times a year, over and over again, so that our students are able to work on the skill sets that they get in debate, work on arguing both sides of an issue, and really challenging themselves to really understand an issue instead of a one-off debate like we have in this situation. So it's a little bit different. We like to think of it as a preparation for going out and doing advocacy work with your senators and your representatives or your local officials, to preparing you to kind of have a practice whenever you go and make a presentation, someone says, well, what about this? And you're like, well, I've already debated that and I have an answer. It's up here, you're good to go. And so that's one of the things that we hope comes out of our students' participation in debate. Well, thank you all for your wonderful questions and for taking the time to work with us today. I think Reynard's going to get ready to go here, but I'm going to ask our judges and our debaters to step outside real quick for some photo opportunities, and then back to Mr. Reynard.
Let's give them a hand, please. Weren't they outstanding?